Hello, good morning, and welcome to the second segment of the LGBTQ of Northwest Indiana and PFLAG of Crown Point TV. Your hosts are Mari Victoria and Elizabeth Menning. Well, welcome to the show, and you want to talk to us a bit about what you're going to discuss today?
Sure. My name is Mari Victoria. This is Elizabeth,
We go by she, her, hers pronouns.
both of us. And today we decided to break up our program into a variety of segments, the first of which will be a short recap for the past week in the LGBTQ world, followed by
We're going to talk about Pride events here in 2020 with the coronavirus impact, give a status of some of the Pride events here near us that we know about, and go into a little bit of history about Pride.
As well as June being Pride Month, there are two events of note that occurred during the month of June. The first is that I'll talk about is the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida. And the second one will be a little history about Stonewall and the Stonewall riots.
Talk a little bit about a partnership we have with a smoking cessation program that's related to our Pride event, and talk a little bit about a local and a national resource. We plan on highlighting one of these each time.
And we will talk about our virtual offerings that are still going on. And we will finish up,
Identity.
and then we'll finish up with the beginnings of the topic of identity. Today we'll talk about identity in general, as it applies to all of us. But in future shows, we will begin to talk specifically about how identity is defined in the LGBTQ world.
Yep. That'll be it for today.
Okay, our first segment, LGBTQ news. All of the information here can be found at the LGBTQ Nation News website. Unfortunately, the very first story is about a transgender woman who was of color who was stabbed to death. Her name was Nina Pop, and she was 28 years old and a transgender woman. The incident occurred in her hometown of Sikeston, Missouri on May 3rd. The investigation is ongoing, and they're trying to determine whether this was a hate crime. The only detail that was provided by the media or police was that she had attended a party in the early morning hours on the day of her death. Per the Human Rights Campaign, this is the 10th transgender person to be murdered this year. And 3 other transgender women were murdered in the very same week in Puerto Rico. Penelope Diaz Ramirez, Leila Pelaez Sanchez, and Serena Angelique Velasquez Ramos. Terry Cooper, the director of community engagement for the HRC, was quoted as saying, "We are seeing an epidemic of violence that can no longer be ignored. Transgender and gender nonconforming people, especially trans women of color, risk our lives by living as our true selves, and we are being violently killed for doing so." The second piece of news, unfortunately, is about another transgender woman who was also stabbed recently. Her name was Hella J. O'Regan, if I have that correct. She was a 20-year-old transgender woman. She was attacked and killed by a 42-year-old man named Damian Campbell at her place of work called the Diesel Barbershop in San Antonio, Texas. Police think at this time that she was not being targeted for her gender identity. However, she becomes the 11th transgender person to be murdered this year. The story behind this story is that the shop was being cleaned and prepared for the reopening that would happen on May 8th, and they were also taking appointments. Campbell entered the shop, presumably to make an appointment, but when he was asked about When Campbell was asked about a payment method, he returned to his car and retrieved a knife, gun, and backpack and re-entered the store. The shop personnel attempted to give Campbell whatever he wanted to try to get him back out of the shop, but he said he did not want money. He did say, and I quote, "What have you done wrong? What have you done wrong? God sent me here to kill you because you have done something wrong. What have you done wrong?" Campbell then forced the employees into the back of the shop, one of whom escaped, the second of which was stabbed, who also was able to escape and ran to a nearby restaurant to report the attack. But O'Regan, unfortunately, was put in a chokehold until she became unconscious and then stabbed to death. Again, a quote from Terry Cooper of the HRC: "Her death further underscores the dire and urgent need to end violence and discrimination against transgender people, and especially against transgender women now." My third story for today is better news. In fact, it's wonderful news. And that is in the state of Ohio, which does not have statewide protections for LGBTQ people. In a little village called Gambier, Ohio, the council has instated a human rights ordinance for the village, and that was passed via a Zoom meeting. The ordinance was modeled after proposed legislation that adds sexual orientation and gender identity to state law, but they felt they couldn't wait, so they took care of this over a Zoom call. Alana Yoakum, the executive director of Equality Ohio, said after the vote, "The world seems to be on hold, but many people can't wait to be afforded basic legal protections for everyone that everyone else has. Generally, LGBTQ people in Ohio are not covered in the laws that make discrimination illegal. We are all making hard decisions right now. Whether or not you can be out and open at work should not be one of them." Thank you.
So thank you for ending on a more positive note. We wanted to talk a little bit too about pride, not just pride in being LGBTQ, but pride as a community. And as you know, the coronavirus impact has affected a lot of the pride events because, of course, June is Pride Month, but that is too early for large gatherings. And everything that was scheduled for May and June in person has been postponed or canceled. Pride, it's not just 1 month in our community. It's a living, breathing thing that is most palpable during times of crisis and in times of triumph. These are times where we have historically only had each other to lean on. And we're hoping that during this pandemic, that the LGBTQ and ally community can come together and support each other to continue passing these types of resolutions and to work on preventing the violence and hate crimes that are taking place. So a little bit about the Pride event. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the events first, and then you can get into a little bit of history of Pride, and then Amari will talk about those two topics. But we have Northwest Indiana Pride, which is still on track for September 12th. We've rescheduled from June to September. It will be indoors at the Lincoln Community Center in Highland. At this point, we're cautiously, optimistically hopeful that that will still take place, but we will keep you posted. Michigan City and South Bend, which were both scheduled for June 20th, are both canceled. Fort Wayne is scheduled for the end of July and the 25th, and they are hoping that that will still stay on course. If not, it will be in September. And Indianapolis has canceled their in-person event. This is a very big, very old Pride, but they'll be doing a virtual event on June 20th that we can all participate in, attend, whatever, from 2 to 10 p.m. And then there is a global virtual Pride. So the Interpride, which is a collection of Pride organizations from around the world, is getting together to create a global virtual Pride, which will take place over 24 hours on June 27th. And so we're all looking forward to that. Spencer Pride is rescheduled till October. I realize that's in the south of the state, but they're good friends of ours. And Chicago has canceled. LA, San Francisco, Denver, New York, all these places have canceled their Pride events. So some are doing virtual events, either smaller or in place of the other. And I know that puts together a totally new challenge in this day and age. But a little bit about well, you know what, why don't you start your history of Pride and then I'll jump in.
Okay, Pride, as you know, is just one of the things that is earmarked observance-wise for June. But as I mentioned in the introduction, there are two events that occurred during June that either have to do with Pride or have to do with an injustice against the LGBTQ community. The first thing I would like to talk about is the Pulse nightclub attack that happened on June 12th of 2016. So this would be the 4th anniversary, I guess, of that event. It happened in the morning at about 2 a.m. in the Pulse nightclub, one of Orlando, Florida's largest nightclubs. During that attack, 49 people were killed, predominantly in a crowd of nearly 300, predominantly gay people inside the club. At the time, it was the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. The gunman was a 29-year-old named Omar Mateen of Fort Pierce, Florida, and he was armed with an AR-15 assault rifle. He exchanged fire with nightclub security, and then when the police arrived, with the police officers as well. He subsequently took hostages into the bathroom, where he then told police that he had explosives that he was ready to detonate. And while he was in there, he also dialed 911 to pledge his allegiance to ISIS. While Mateen was in the bathroom with the hostages, the club was evacuated by the police. Then they put explosives on the outside wall of the club, and when they detonated them, they gained access to the bathroom. That occurred about 5 a.m., when at that point Mateen was shot and killed. It was unclear at the time of the attack whether or not it was a planned act of terrorism or an act of a hate crime. Mateen's family had said that it shown anger towards two gay men kissing the week before the attack. It's also thought that Mateen may have had another target, a Disney complex, but apparently was spooked by police. One last fact, Mateen had been interviewed twice prior to the attack in 2013 and 2014 by the FBI, generally for his declared allegiance to ISIS. And the FBI believed that Mateen's wife may have actually known about his plan for the attack. Okay, the second thing I would like to at least begin to talk about is the Stonewall riots. As we know, the Stonewall riots were the catalyst that started the gay rights movements back in the late 60s. The attack, the riot began in the early hours of June 28, 1969, when New York City police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay club in Greenwich Village on Christopher Street. The raid sparked a riot among the bar patrons and the neighborhood residents. That was then followed by 6 days of protest and violent clashes outside the bar, the neighboring streets, and in Christopher Park. In the 60s and before, times were not welcoming for LGBT Americans. In fact, solicitation of some same-sex relations was illegal in New York. So LGBT individuals went to gay bars and clubs where they were able to express themselves and socialize openly without fear. The New York State Liquor Authority considered the gathering of gay people to be disorderly and therefore penalized and shut down bars and clubs that were known or suspected of serving alcohol to LGBT people. In 1966, activists were able to overturn the regulation, but police harassment continued because gay behavior in public was still illegal. Many of those bars operated without liquor licenses, partially because they were run by the mafia. The first U.S. gay rights organization was called the Society for Human Rights, and it was formed by a gentleman by the name of Henry Gerber in 1924, a considerable amount of time before 1969. It was, however, disbanded in 1925 due to police raids. That organization, the Society for Human Rights, published several issues of a newsletter called Friendship and Freedom, and it's considered the U.S.'s first gay interest newsletter. The first lesbian organization was the Daughters of Goliath, formed in San Francisco on September of 1955. In the 60s, a group called the Mattachine Society sued taverns refusing to serve gay customers. The Commission on Human Rights ruled that gay individuals had the right to be served in bars. Should I go on? All right. I have more, but since we are only at the beginning of May, I will continue this story on our next episode.
Bill, have you ever seen any of the documentaries before Stonewall Uprising, and after Stonewall?
No, I have not. No, I really have not.
Those are really, really good documentaries. I learned so much watching those. They cover, what Amari was talking about with some videos and interviews and other documentary methods. But last year, the PFLAG group showed them at the Merrillville Public Library. We did 3 screenings and then kind of had a discussion session after each screening, and really learned a lot, had some really good discussions with the people that attended. This year it's a little bit more challenging since we're not meeting in person, but we're still hoping to do some sort of education, some sort of sharing something of those videos. May not be on this platform, maybe through a watch party or a Netflix party or Amazon Prime party, but we'll figure out something with that. We are working with the library on that. But those are really great documentaries for teaching us about the history of where all this came from. It was just so eye-opening.
Yeah.
So
one thing I'll make a statement about the media in general. I really do need to look that up because I've heard about the riots and so on, but I never really saw the documentary. But one thing I have noted, and people have always said that the media or the entertainment industry has always been a good barometer for acceptance. Because as you know, it had some dark history back to the McCarthy era, and to where people were blacklisted for their views. And one thing I've noted recently that I found reassuring, if you will, the role of the gay person or transgender person in whether it be TV series or movies is almost a normal occurrence now, where it wasn't. There was always a shock factor, and it made the news. And now there's characters on just about every TV series that I watch that is either gay or transgender. So do you feel that as well, that there is becoming more of an acceptance by the entertainment industry, and they're not as fearful for actually incorporating these type of characters in the story?
I've seen a move towards that.
I agree. I believe that the industry, media industry, film industry, are considering and including more LGBTQ people in their projects. I think there's still some work to be done in access for the LGBTQ people into that area. I don't think it's accepted is not the right word. I don't think the same consideration is necessarily given to the LGBTQ person, though the topics of the programs that are coming out, whether they're TV shows or movies, because they include LGBTQ characters, I think that's driving them to actually not only consider the people for those characters, but to learn more about their stories.
There has been a little pushback when they, it happens not just with the LGBTQ community, but if they choose an actor or actress who is not actually LGBTQ to portray an LGBTQ person, just like we've had people portray people of color when they really weren't people of color, and that sort of thing. But I think that there is definitely a positive move. The organization GLAAD, GLAAD, is really an organization that tracks and promotes LGBTQ inclusiveness and acceptance in media. And it's a really good organization to stay in touch with. They've got some great resources on their website, and have really done some great work. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about them in an upcoming session as well.
I just find it an interesting statement for an industry that was virtually run by people of that were either gay, I can't say transgender, but back in the 30s and 40s, and they had to remain in the closet for fear of repercussions, to now it's becoming more of a normalized inclusion. And so, and I just think back to the days when Helen DeGeneres included in her TV series when she actually came out. And, she suffered repercussions of that, but now she's a media mogul and no one would dare get in the way of Ellen. But Ellen's force, gosh, look at her now. She's got a talk show, she's got a game show, and she is a very, very honorable spokesperson. So a neat person besides that, an absolutely amazing person involved in the community. So I just wanted to interject that because that's been, I know that with this coming up, I wanted to ask you about your thoughts about that because, like I said, just about every TV series or movie that we watched, it seems to have had a gay character included, or just not as an integral role too, just not as a role that comes in and out per se. So
definitely needed.
The media can definitely be a very powerful and positive force, a factor in LGBTQ acceptance. I think that goes hand in hand with people just needing education about the LGBTQ community rather than ignorance about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that allays a lot of fears that people have. So the media, as polarized as it can be, can serve a purpose to actually make people see that LGBTQ people are people and have the same kinds of lives that most all of us do.
and very successful. Kelly and I know several TV personalities, news personalities, on-air personalities, anchors that are gay, and so I mean they make no qualms about that, and it's refreshing to see that they're allowed to live out their personal lives and have it totally not affect their professional lives. I mean, these are award-winning commentators, award-winning anchors, and so that is very nice to see, and that they're not having to hide what their private life is.
I think that's really encouraging for a lot of people, because obviously people in the limelight tend to be role models.
Mm-hmm.
And if younger people especially can see them living authentically, they will be more inclined, hopefully be more inclined to do so. I know, again, that's one reason that we are so big on building up a healthy LGBTQ and ally community here in Northwest Indiana, because there's still so many people in this region that are hiding in the closet and not living authentically. And I can only imagine that right now during this, anybody who's still quarantined, it could be incredibly stressful to either be in a house with family members who don't accept you or don't know about you. It's added challenges. But we're doing what we can to help with all that. And we are offering virtual support groups, but beyond that, we're offering virtual community groups focused on LGBTQ and ally individuals. But I know we mentioned that during the last episode, and we'll go through it again in a little bit more detail. But parents of LGBTQ teens, youth, and adults, LGBTQ people and their allies, people who've had somebody come out as LGBTQ and are struggling to learn about that or accept it or deal with it. We have opportunities for all of this. We've also had a recent increase in the number of phone calls we're getting from parents of young children that have identified either as gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, or transgender, and they're looking for play dates. Of course, that's been kind of put on hold now during the quarantine, but even virtual play dates would be something, where the kids can get together with other kids who are like them or think like them, that type of thing.
Yeah, I got to apologize. It seems like Zoom is having some audio problems. I keep on hearing this thing sound like a flying saucer come and go. So it's probably some of Kelly's relatives coming to visit her.
Oh, my goodness.
Getting back on track here. So this is one of the and I just want to restate the reason why we are so honored to have you part of our Bill and Kelly Show network, that we feel that this is a platform that does serve a purpose, just not to get information out there, but to bring some normalcy to this conversation. And the more we could do that, the more we put that out there. And I just remember this one sign, and I realize some people are it may not be very religious, but it really set an example in my mind where we all should start thinking about. It was a sign that said, that love thy neighbor thing, I was serious about it. Sign of God. Yes. And that's where I think something like this that has set us as a society back on our heels brings out the worst in some people, but then it makes some people sit back and think, wow, what is my role in society? What is my role in humanity? And to know that, this person that because of the way you're brought up or whatever you used to hate, you may have to depend on to be a part of the community. And that's something that, it's so vital. I think people realize that we're all in this together. We all, in order to get out of this, we all have to work together. and that means goes over racial identity, humanity as a whole. So, but we, I can't say how much we're honored that you agreed to be a part of our platform. I think that it will carry out the message even further, and actually more people will adapt to what is being said. So.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a win-win-win-win situation.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
and we hope through this program, not only do we reach the non-LGBTQ community or the ally community, but we really hope to reach the LGBTQ community so that they can know that they have one other outlet, one other thing that they can tune into to get all positive LGBTQ lessons and news and information. We would, just as the film and TV media use their mediums for to send their message, their story, we would like to use this platform in the same manner.
Let me just jump in real quick too. I hadn't really planned on talking about this, so there'll be more discussion in a later session, but we are going to be rolling out what we call safe zone training, so where we can educate individuals and businesses on what it means to be a safe space, especially for LGBTQ people. And there's a 2 to 3 hour training program that we're going to make available first to our PFLAG members and then to the general Northwest Indiana population. And at the end of that, they'll get a sticker that they can put in their business to indicate that they're a safe place. If somebody isn't willing to go through the training or doesn't have the time to go through the training, but they still want to be known that they are accepting, we'll have a different kind of sticker for that. So we're kind of excited about that program, and there's definitely more to come on that here in the next few weeks.
Good.
Another program that we're involved with, though, is this smoking cessation. Mari, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So through our Pride organization, we've become aware of work being done for tobacco prevention and smoking cessation among other Pride organizations. And we decided to go ahead and also promote the same programming, so to speak. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the burden of cigarette smoking, how it affects us. Tobacco use is the leading preventable cause of death in the United States right now, and it kills more than 480,000 people, Americans, each year.
Jump in real quick. One reason that we're so interested in this is because there seems to be a greater percentage of people who are LGBTQ that are involved with smoking or vaping as a stress relief generally or a coping mechanism. So that's one reason that we're bringing this up here today.
In addition to 480,000 plus people being killed each year by this, there are still 34 million Americans who smoke. Smoking causes immediate damage to your body and can lead to long-term health problems. For every person that dies, there are roughly 30 people who suffer from smoking-related illnesses.
Does that include the 30?
Actually, there is a number for the secondhand smoke, but I don't think I have it here. I'll look that up. In March of 2012, the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, launched a first ever paid national tobacco education campaign called Tips from Former Smokers. It profiles real people who are living with serious long-term health effects from smoking and secondhand smoke exposure. There are stories from former smokers that talk about the disabilities that it caused them and the toll on their health that it's taken. It also features non-smokers who experience life-threatening episodes as a result to exposure to secondhand smoke, and also family members who are impacted by a loved one smoking-related illness. In fact, if we want to talk about some of the illnesses that are either caused by, associated with, or made worse by smoking or exposure to secondhand smoke, we can talk about cancer of various types, heart disease, stroke, asthma, diabetes, Berger's disease, COPD, gum disease, preterm birth, HIV, vision loss and blindness, and mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. And realize that all of those are not necessarily in a single smoker, but these things can intensify health, like HIV can be intensified by smoking. The campaign tips, or tips for former smokers, is that smoking does cause immediate damage to your body and leads to long-term health problems. That there are 30 people who live with serious smoking-related illness for every one person that dies. I don't know what that would be. That's millions of people. And that there is a resource. The resource has a hotline. The number is 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Not only is there a national based quit line, but there happens to be state-based quit lines as well. It has the same phone number, 1-800-QUIT-NOW. And I've got some information from the Indiana profile for this program. And some of the things that are available through this program are phone counseling, web-based services like quitline information, some self-help tools, interactive counseling, cessation information, automated email messages to help you on your quest to quit, chat rooms, medication-wise, the patch and gum are available, and they also provide things to help you along, services to help you along, and that could be things like voicemail with callbacks, referrals to other health services, recorded self-help messages, and mailed info or self-help resources. There are some eligibility requirements. Multiple calls to adults who are ready to quit in the next 30 days. And teenagers 13 to 17 years old can receive counseling through the youth program. There's more information about this.
We'll be sharing that on our website and possibly in some future.
And I just want to underscore the reason why you're bringing this up is that because of the pressures that are on a person, whether it's the identity or what have you, that is the reason why there's such a high instances of smoking in the community. So, which,
there's that, plus that community has been targeted by smoking advertisements in the past, so that led to that as well.
Interesting. I did not know that. So
yes.
The tobacco industry, well, again, they've targeted, even though it's illegal, they had targeted youngsters and yeah.
Yeah.
Well. Oh well. Yeah. But yeah, that is a troubling statement of itself, and the fact that a lot of this is occurring already because of the pressure, but that there was a advertisement or a marketing target makes it more troubling.
Yes, I don't believe that's currently the case, but it was prior, and I'll dig up some more information on that.
One of the things that we are going to do to continue to promote tobacco prevention and smoking cessation is to, like we did last year, once again this year, have a smoke and vape free Pride event. This is one of the biggest audiences that we have during the course of the year, and our largest opportunity to promote non-smoking and quitting of smoking, as well as other tobacco products.
So we will still have the smoking area outside, but we'll be promoting that program to quit if you can.
Okay.
All right. So just kind of quickly, we wanted to highlight one of our local resources that's doing something good for not only our community, but the whole Northwest Indiana community here during the coronavirus pandemic. And that is Hasta La Vista Grill and Eatery. We've recently done a fundraiser to gather money to be able to give them so that they can continue their free meal program. And of course, now I know that they're going to be able to, as many restaurants open to like 50% capacity. But they were seeded with a grant, as it were, from one of our big corporations, and they were able to provide like at least 65 meals from that. And we provided a much smaller portion, but they're still going to be able to use that. They're providing breakfast and lunch, either at their regular prices if you can afford them, free if you need the help, and they also take donations to be able to continue offering this. They really just wanted to reach out and help people who are needing help, especially during the pandemic. And I just, their hearts are so big. They're very supportive of the LGBTQ and ally community in Northwest Indiana. And Susan Crouch and Wanda Hines and Lisa are very great people. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. They're in Highland, Indiana, on Highway Avenue at, I can't read this, 2518 Highway Avenue.
Right at the end there, right as you go up to Indianapolis Boulevard. Great place to hang out in, great place to, and you are so right. They are so supportive of the community. And plus they have pretty damn good hamburgers too.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
Man. Yeah, in fact, talking about smoking and other addictions, I need to stop eating hamburgers or something. Oh boy. No, but yeah, for you, those you out there listening and never tried their place, are they? They're still takeout only, or are they opening up 50%? Do you know?
I think this coming
Monday
week they're going to be starting.
That's right, because they're in Lake County, which means they're a week behind. Because Lake and Marion County were asked to offset by about a week. So
Yes.
Great community. Art. They're very supportive of the arts, the community, and have great food and music. Oh boy. Yeah, they do have some entertaining music there periodically on open mic, and I hope they're going to be able to get back to that some way, shape, or form. So because they were but that's going to depend on how well we do with slowing down this virus pandemic, particularly in Lake County, which is scary. No.
Yes. I think we just need to keep in mind that a lot of the personal protective equipment is not just for us, but it's about for people that we come in contact with, especially when they may be later coming in contact with compromised or more vulnerable individuals like the elders or youngsters or people with underlying health conditions. So
and that's I'm
glad
glad
if people would wear masks.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that, because that's one thing I find troubling is that you can make your own mask at home, so there's really no excuse. Just a cloth covering will slow the penetration of the droplets that will carry the virus, and it's just a matter of responsibility, personal responsibility, and it's not to protect you, but it's to protect other people. And but I still, we just witnessed an argument go on right outside a grocery store where a person refused to wear a face mask and refused to take the free mask that was being offered them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and and I've got to say, we're not going to get out of this. People constantly complaining about how this is crushing our economy. Well, there's a way out, and we're in a conservative state, and we have a Republican governor that's very conservative, and in a state where there are guard marks there that points that we need to make, and we're not going to be able to make them unless everyone fully cooperates. It's just I feel like the kid in the class that misbehaves and the entire class is punished. Well, that's kind of like what this all is.
Yes.
Yeah, we all got to begin to cooperate and wear masks. And Kelly and I even had special masks made.
Oh, that's great.
Ah, wonderful.
We've ordered some Pride-themed masks, but they haven't
awesome.
arrived yet.
Yeah, awesome.
One thing I'd like to mention is, yes, you are correct. We all have a responsibility. And even though the reopening of Indiana is starting, I've been finding that there are many people who, just because we're reopening, things are being relaxed a little bit, they have chosen to continue to take the precautions that we took during the stay-at-home order in order to hopefully help a resurgence or continuation of this virus.
Yeah, and we as consumers have a very powerful tool at our disposal. It's money, and I personally have gone out publicly and criticized companies for not having protective policy for their employees and for their customers, and they've changed now. Quite a few places you cannot get in without a face mask. So, yeah, it's getting, like I said, we're all going to be able to get out of this together if we all work together. So, but
yes.
yeah, and just about every organization has felt the crippling effect of this pandemic, and but we're learning to get beyond it. We're all strong and willing to do what it takes, but yeah, we just have to learn that sometimes our rights are affected, in ways that, but it's for the benefit of us all. So, boy. So, talking more about some of the things that you guys have coming up, that things that you kind of had to shelve because of the pandemic, and you've taken. Again, you stepped in and started using virtualizing meetings. And how is that going? Like some of your support meetings, are you able to bring people on, and how are they feeling as they join the groups virtually?
They're very appreciative. We have noticed a decrease in numbers. I don't know, I know for sure I've got some people that attend so many Zoom meetings, either for school or for work, that by the end of the day they are done and they do not want to join another meeting. So
I hear you.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
With the weather getting better, we're having fewer teens join the teens meeting, perhaps because they're getting outside. Some of them have said, though, that it's not like the in-person meetings and they just don't enjoy it as much. But the people that have been able to attend, from my perspective, have been really appreciative. Sometimes it's their only real contact with other people right now. What do you think, Amari?
I think both of those things are true, that people have been quite appreciative to have these meetings as a point of gathering. But at the same time, I think all of us are beginning to experience virtual meeting burnout, so to speak. And I understand that today's weather isn't really a good example, but this even happens for in-person meetings. The summertime, it's always much harder to get attendees at meetings because the weather outside is just so wonderful.
Right.
And I think that may be playing a part as well in the decreased attendance.
Mm-hmm. We are trying to move from being primarily support groups to being more of community and connection groups, people just needing to get together and hang out and talk about stuff. So that's been a good move, and I think that'll help. We also moved the teens meetings to before dinner instead of during dinner, so hopefully that'll help as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think you're right. It's. I'll be honest with you. In fact, I was talking to Kelly about this. A couple of things that I want to see go away, regardless of where we're at, is the words "in these trying times" and all these advertising agencies. And they have a full production crew out there. They may be socially distancing, but you could tell by the quality of the video. But they're trying to simulate Zoom meetings, and I'm like, use Zoom or something. Seriously, I'm getting tired of in these trying times. When I hear that, I feel worse. That's why I want to just, I know these are trying times. Everyone knows they are. Just drop it. Just market your product and drop that. Well.
Well, I think we're going to end up talking about identity on May 28th.
Next time.
Yes.
I think so.
All right.
So we're doing these shows right now twice a month, on the second and fourth Thursdays at 11 a.m. So the next one is on May 28th, 11 a.m. Central Time. And for sure we'll be talking about what is identity. And anytime anybody has any requests or questions or concerns or wants to share a story, please reach out to either the Bill and Kelly Show or to Amari and myself.
Definitely. One thing, I'm really glad that you're going to bring that topic up next episode, because I'm going to take note, because that's one thing I've noticed about the community, is that's where the growth seems to be, is the identity crisis. I want to call it an identity crisis, because it actually is these people who are struggling mentally with not feeling right about who they are. And all of a sudden, after counseling, they come to find out is they're really not who they want to be, or who they feel like they should be. So for me, that's going to help me further reinstate that part, because I've got to admit, I fully don't understand that part of the community yet, and it's just getting my mind wrapped around it. So I'm going to really look forward to that one.
And it's definitely an exercise not just for people who are LGBTQ, but for us allies, for people in general. It's just one of those big mysteries.
Yes, everyone has an identity. Some people are very much comfortable in their identities, while other people, as you said, Bill, are still searching for their identities or contemplating or questioning their identities. Mm-hmm. And we will start the topic off by talking about identity in general, so that everyone can have some knowledge about what identity is considered to be, and then we'll get into more specific details for LGBTQ folk.
Right. Because until you're in those shoes, and that's one thing that I always try to do, is trying to imagine myself in those shoes. And that's one I just can't, I've got about 1,000 personalities here that several counselors said I should be medicated to get rid of a couple of them. So as far as identity, that's my only identity problem. They come out periodically. Kelly has the same problem too, by the way. It's called acting. So in her case, no, it's always good to hear that, because, I hear about people that are going through that. I listen to NPR, who they've done some marvelous work as far as representing that community and coming out with people. And in fact, Amari, there is one case it was scarily, and I think I talked to you about this before, that was on NPR. It was kind of like your story retold, and all of the things behind the backstories and everything. And so it's very helpful for those of us that are not in the community to know that and begin to understand that. I think it draws us closer to an understanding and appreciation for what people go through.
I think it's important not only to learn about what identity is, but to actually realize what our own identities are, and to be able to be understanding and accepting of the identities of others, whether or not they're in the LGBTQ community. I think Society and Humanity does a fair job, maybe even a good job of that, but not a great job. There are many things that need a lot of work in our Society and Humanity.
I call it a fair job.
Yeah. And one thing that
Only fair.
This person said that made it understandable for me, but also made me sad in a way. This person that was being interviewed said, their generation that they were in, they felt like, yes, there was a bit of a more understanding, but still that ceiling has not been broken. But they said that they felt very good about the upcoming generation, and that they're going to be in a better position. And in fact, they are. That that there is more of an understanding. There's less of fear. Not that there's totally unbounded, but they felt better about the elevation of this whole idea of having a different identity than what you were born with, and coming out. What does it mean to come out? And so that I think it was a strong statement. That it's sad that their generation was not accepting, but the upcoming generations, there's more and more improvement and more elevation of understanding. And
agree.
Yeah, and they see that. In fact, there's some elementary, middle school age kids that, in fact, that was the other statement about this NPR interview, was it is sometimes celebrated when they come out or they identify as being non-binary. And that, to me, is huge. Very huge. So, well, anyway, this is not my show. I'm sorry. Yeah, if Kelly were here, she'd stick a sock in my mouth and tell me to shut up. She does very good at it.
So we also hope to bring people on that can share some of their coming out stories or experiences and some of their journeys as well. We'll bring them on time to time.
Yeah, and I'll forward some people I know on to you so that you can see if they'd be appropriate to be on, and so that'd be great. Well, with that, do you have anything more to share?
Oh, always, but we'll get it for next time.
All right, great. Well, this has been great, a great experience, and we hope we got more word out there to folks. And please, if you're out there, if you found this helpful, or just share, please, and get the word out that this exists. And we're going to do the best on our end. And with that, I guess we'll wrap up the show. Amari and Elizabeth, it's been very, very just joyful to have you guys on again, and providing this platform for you. It is reassuring that there's hope for the future.
Well, thank you very much, Bill, and thank you for having the Bill and Collie Show and being able to produce our LGBTQ Northwest Indiana and PFLAG Crown Point TV.
Along with all the other great
But with that, we'll wish you all a very safe and enjoyable rest of the week. And we're in a pandemic. We should be staying home anyway, and the weather's going to prove that over the next couple of days, unfortunately. So, with that, we'll wrap it up.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll say goodbye for now.
This episode of The Bill and Callie Show is brought to you by Executive Suite Squared by ATG, offering private and shared office space with 24/7 secured access, 3 state-of-the-art conference rooms, shared lounge and cafe area, receptionist, printing center, and fiber optic internet access with Wi-Fi throughout. Conveniently located just south of 8094 at the Kennedy Avenue exit at 2901 Carlson Drive in Hammond, Indiana. For information on how you can become a member, go to executivesuites2.com or call 219-844-2901. Executive Suites Squared, home to the Bill and Callie Show.